Good morning, everybody. Mitzi Cruz here, host of Lincoln Live, and this morning we are here with Dave Rowan. Dave Rowan is the Urban Arborist, and why don't we start off by, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Dave?
Well, I was born in California. I've lived in Lincoln since 1996. I've been an arborist tree work since 1989, and I am local, have been local since 96 in Lincoln.
So, what exactly is an arborist?
Arborist is basically somebody who's devoted their career to learning about trees as well as the care of trees. Most people would refer to an arborist as a career path as well as a tree service. So we offer full service tree care. The only thing that we do not offer are applications, sprays that requires a separate license in the state of California.
So if somebody did, are you referring to like in the event that maybe somebody had some disease?
Yes, fertilization, any types of sprays or applications in the state of California requires a applicator's license.
Gotcha. So in the event that you had a client who needed that type of service,
I can refer them. And actually, to be honest with you, many of your landscape companies who already had those licenses have chosen to start to take over the shrubs and trees as well.
Oh, sure.
So, because they've already got the equipment, they've already got the license and the training, and so it's not difficult to find an applicator if you need one.
Got it. So tell us, what type of calls do you usually get?
Oh, there is never any day where we get the same thing. Just this week alone, I have had 3 emergency calls in addition to our normal flow of work. Everything from branches tearing off, branches broken out, hitting roofs, over propane tanks. I mean, there's never a time or a day where it's always the same. And this is extremely important because that's what differentiates getting back to an arborist. Is an arborist is not just somebody who goes out and assesses or cuts trees. There's a lot of information as well as a lot of knowledge about how to properly deal with a situation. Yesterday's job here in Lincoln, I won't name names, but a well-known person in our community had a oak tree that had tipped over into 3 other trees. She's got very nice landscaping, she's got expensive pottery, Japanese maples, and all these other things right directly underneath this tree. And when I went to go out and look at the job, her one request is that we don't want pieces just falling.
Right.
And so and this is impacted into another tree. And I told her, I says, I will guarantee you that we will not just come out here, climb a tree, and just let everything fall.
Right.
We literally, in less than 4 hours, with proper rigging equipment and other types of things that go along with this, we're able to actually raise up pieces and swing them where we wanted and set them down in a very controlled fashion. So not a single leaf, not a single branch, not a single piece of pottery was broken or scratched or moved. And that was a whole entire oak tree in 4 hours.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between somebody who has the right knowledge, the right tools, the right experience versus, well, I'll get my cousin Joe out and he did 3 other ones, but everyone needs to know their limitation. This is a field that looks like it's easy, but in reality there are so many dangers and so many things that can happen that you really should, if you have any questions at all, call a professional. Yeah.
So a couple things. I feel like this interview really could go on for hours because there's so much, that goes into this.
There is.
So I was really impressed. Actually, I called Dave initially. I had some folks that were concerned about a tree on a property they had just purchased, and they were concerned that they weren't going to be out in the area for a while. The house was going to remain vacant, and so they were worried what this tree might do in the event of heavy rains and things like that and winds. So that's how I initially met Dave. He came out and checked everything out and basically, explained what to do, how to handle it, what it was going to cost. So it was very informative. But
sure.
So then we had Dave come out to our home. And not only did he help us to remove a large branch that was hanging over our house where our children would be in danger in the event that that did break off and fall, but in addition to that, he actually walked our property and helped us to understand what was going on with all of the trees that were on our property. So being having country property and having, you know, everything from oak trees to fruitless mulberries, and he actually just removed a fruitless mulberry in, what, 4 hours?
Yeah.
It had it all. You can't even tell the tree was there anymore, but I thought that was really great. So
There are some things that may lead a homeowner to believe that what they're doing is right for a tree. In roughly 10 to 15 minutes when I show up to somebody, and I always like to meet my clients in person for this reason and not just drop a piece of paper off and run. Just a little bit of time spent will give you the proper knowledge to understand that in many cases what a homeowner is doing is only creating more work and or only causing the potential to have more problems later. With a very basic understanding and just a few minutes of conversation, they can begin to see that they can save work, make their trees safer, as well as enjoy better, more evenly shaded lawns and things with just the right type of pruning and or trimming. So there, you may look at this as an expense, but and it isn't cheap, unfortunately, due to our regulations and things that we have to follow by law, particularly if you have employees. There's all kinds of regulations that apply specifically to companies who have employees that most people aren't aware of. Anyway, I'll wrap it up by just saying that it will be well worth your money spent to, at the very least, come out and have somebody give you a free quote.
Well, I'll tell you, for us, you know, I was really touched by the way you were so concerned about the tree itself
Yeah.
that was hanging over the house. So you said, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to cut it back this amount, this percentage, because we
Yes.
don't want to shock the tree
Right.
and cause, you know.
You can cause more damage or literally just have more foliage sprout out, which will only add more weight
Right.
and more sail for the wind. This season has been very uncommon in the fact that it arrived very late for storm damage, and I'm still, to this day, getting, just yesterday alone, 3 calls on large, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14-inch diameter branches coming out. So that's where, if you have, and I'll give you a summary on that. On any time you have a consistent wind coming from one direction and that wind reverses, it puts a different perspective on your house. Your house and or other vegetation can act as a funneling. Winds follow and path through that funnel. When that wind reverses, all different dynamics start to happen. Other things that can affect trees is the strength and consistency of the wind. Bursts and or small gusts are one thing. Consistent speed and consistent wind is another thing.
Sure.
So when you have that storm that comes from the opposite way, or when you have that gust that is stronger than normal, that's the many times the failure point of a tree.
Got it.
Yeah.
You know, I love the responsiveness of the audience. I mean, they're so eager to talk to you, they're actually calling.
Well, that's not abnormal for us. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that a lot of times homeowners are concerned about different things, from invasive roots,
Yes.
maybe that cause foundation issues. Recently we had issues with our septic system in regards to that fruitless mulberry that you were so kind to come and take out for us, and those types of things. So do you have any, can you maybe give the audience a little information about maybe what trees to kind of stay away from planting right next to the house or septic? Or
Sure. And this varies from place to place. Soil conditions, amount of rainfall, slope of the property, where water settles and or collects. There's a lot of things that come into this, but there's 1 or 2 trees that we have here specifically in the Lincoln area that most people don't tag and they're not aware of what they are, and that they allow them to grow, and that is cottonwoods. We are surrounded by cottonwoods in our community, and they're a fairly quick growing tree, and they're really not a tree you want near your house. They're messy for pools. They literally drop these little kind of cotton fuzzball things and they go flying everywhere.
Yeah.
And they also are known to break out large branches as well as be very root invasive.
Oh.
So if you have any doubt as to what your tree is, it's worth it to at least find out, so that you're not having a larger expense or that you don't have a problem later. Now, as far as other things, sidewalks,
Sure.
pools, decks, hot tubs, anything that a root could be invasive with, if you're planting, your landscaper or your landscape designer should be aware of the size of the canopy, which is typically the same size as the roots at maturity, and putting in preemptively root barriers and doing things so that, in many of our homes today, we don't have large spaces to put a large landscape, but that doesn't stop you, and it shouldn't keep you from allowing yourself to preemptively take a barrier and place it in beforehand. And then root pruning can be done. However, root pruning needs to be done by a professional. You need to know what you're getting into before you cut on those roots. It's very important, and I know this goes without saying that people will cut on them anyway.
Yeah.
And did the tree survive? It can, yes, but there is new laws in the state of California about fence clearancing. If your neighbor's tree is over your fence line, and you do not have the ability to just cut like you did before.
Oh.
There are very specific ways you cannot mutilate. You cannot just do straight up cuts. You have to go back to the nearest lateral. You can't go past the fence line. So while it sometimes may be difficult to get in contact with a neighbor, maybe it's a rental, maybe they're an unresponsive owner, maybe they have a management company, whatever that case may be, it's always going to be best to start by getting in contact, if at all possible, with that person before you do this. And it is literally against the law to cut the roots of the tree. You can be sued. That person can say you caused this failure or this tree.
Right.
And then replacement costs is not replacement costs of a tree of planting size. It's replacement cost of same size and canopy.
Wow.
So just do your homework before you just get out there on that Sunday morning and start hacking away. I'm not saying this as a warning or anything. I'm just saying this as information that has changed recently that you need to become aware of, so that you don't potentially put yourself into a situation that you didn't need or even that you didn't intend to put yourself into.
Sure.
But it was common practice and knowledge to just go out there and
Yeah.
can't do it anymore.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys. I feel very informed and a tad bit confused, and that's
a
why.
lot of information.
And that's why I say, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you could just really peel back the layers, and
Yeah.
we could be here,
Days.
for hours.
Yes.
But I would like to open it up. If any of you guys are watching live, have any questions? Do you see any questions, Andra?
No specific questions, but there's a lot of comments. Janet says even on moving day, you're still doing Lincoln Live.
yeah, it is moving day. We're actually moving. Anyway, long story, but you guys don't want to hear about my moving truck drama.
They said that Joel Usry said that he's seen his sign off the building on Lincoln Boulevard, and he has met you, and he says great video.
Thank you.
So,
And Richard Buss says he is cute.
of course he did. I think he's
And
married.
what kind of emergency calls do you get?
Everything from trees literally on top of roofs to across propane tanks to uprooted across rivers. I mean, there is almost there almost isn't anything I haven't seen or dealt with. I do work for cities, City of Roseville, I work for City of Lincoln, and we've had whole entire streets shut down for 3 hours and traffic closures to little tiny things like, one that was recent was a birch tree, which I had actually gave her a consultation on a year before.
Wow.
And a year later, holy, here it comes right across the neighbor's fence line, was less than 3 inches from breaking a window, went across the pool filter and the pump, and
Yikes.
so there is really no set, so to speak, but I term emergency as anything that is either going to cause more damage if it isn't dealt with, and or definitely anything that has potential to roll and or twist into a building. Anything that is closing a street is definitely emergency, because both fire as well as police need that 7-minute response time. Some cities have a Department of Urban Forestry, Sacramento does, and they will come out and bring it to street for that reason. Some smaller cities do not offer, and they don't have the ability to service that. So also, again, it goes back to if you at all feel uncomfortable about dealing with it yourself, call somebody. Now, our services are available 24/7. Our phones are set up to where it will automatically ring forward, and you have the option to push a number and it automatically comes forward to me. So at any given time, we have the ability to accept emergency work. Yes, obviously the prices are just a little bit more. Typically that involves a crew coming in on overtime. But we have all the correct signage, all the correct lights, all the correct equipment to work in most of those types of environments. So it's something you need to be prepared for, knowledgeable about, as well as have the right equipment to be able to do, because people are not aware. When you see a tree truck going down the road and it's full of chips and those chips look all soft and fluffy, on average, a tree will weigh anywhere from a light tree being 1,500 to 1,800 pounds to a full-size 85-foot tree anywhere from 15 to 18,000 pounds. Oh. So you have to have the right equipment. When you chip, it's a 10-to-1 reduction. So if a landscape guy, and I'm not going to knock landscape people, but you see this all the time, of a trailer being packed with material, they're going to take 10 trailer loads away for every 1 trailer load that's chipped properly with nice sharp knives on the chipper. So it's literally 10 times the weight.
Right.
So this is why we have to have the right equipment and tagged with proper signage and everything, so that when we come up to a job, and this is part of my job, and as a person who does have employees, this is an actual ANSI standard. I have to have a weight chart showing species of tree and weight on every single job we go to.
Wow.
And that's not just for my trucks for Department of Transportation to know what we're carrying away. This is also for safety on the job site.
Got it.
So, all of these things are factors that you have to factor into a job to be able to safely perform it. If you don't know what your material weighs, then the rigging force imparted on something dropping is not just that it's set there, it's moving. So 500 pounds dropping 6 inches is not the same as 500 pounds dropping 2 or 3 feet. So these are all things that you have to be aware of for your equipment, your ropes, your trucks. Everything involved with this is a lot of knowledge and a lot of laws, obviously, that you have to follow. So you really need to think about these things when taking on a project. And another thing as far as emergency work that I should probably mention, when a tree falls and is impacted into something, there's a lot of energy that is stored in all different directions that you won't see until that energy is released. So if you go walking into there with a chainsaw and you don't know what to look for, or you don't know, and this changes by species of tree.
Yeah.
Oak hinges and has different strengths than a pear, Bradford pear, Bartlett pear, flowering pear, all pear trees, versus pine, versus palm. They all react differently. They're all different in the way that they work. And literally, I've watched this happen to homeowners who were not careful, thinking that, oh, I can handle this, and it'll spring back and break your leg.
Oh my goodness.
A tree in 4 or 5 inch diameter branch can store that kind of, it's like somebody coming up and just whack.
Wow.
So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to, whether you call me or someone else, just call someone and get either somebody on site and say, okay, this is what we believe should be done, so that you're not just walking into something blind. It really is something that a homeowner needs advice at the very least on. And if you don't at all feel comfortable doing it, don't. Just don't.
So what, I just want to remind everybody. So you're actually able to come and consult, for lack of better terms, with them.
We can provide, whether it be for somebody who's just purchasing a home that says, I see something here, my insurance company recommended to do some roof clearance, or I'm worried about that this is going to lift the driveway, or maybe it already has started to lift the driveway or sidewalk or whatever, the retaining walls. So we can come out and give you an overview before you buy the home if you want. There's a small fee for doing something like that, but it's not exuberant. And don't hesitate to reach out to an actual consulting arborist. A consulting arborist is somebody who can easily just Google search and they don't have the storefront, they don't have the employees, they don't have the equipment. So while they're trained in arboricultural and horticultural, which is the basically way the plants and trees grow, you're going to get somebody who is very knowledgeable, but will many times a consulting arborist will not climb the tree.
Right.
They may not even have the ability to climb the tree, but that does not mean that they're not knowledgeable.
Right.
What you're purchasing is a service. And if all you're looking for is just information, it's a fantastic source.
Yeah.
I use them myself. But at the same time, if you want work performed, or you think you may need work performed, then obviously you're going to need an arborist. Now that's a working arborist who actually has the storefront, the equipment, the employees to be able to do so.
Got it.
Yeah.
Can you briefly explain how they could actually be denied with insurance?
Oh, okay. So many insurance companies, due to either fire or also what we term roof rats, basically any type of squirrel or vermin or raccoon or whatever, you'd be surprised what happens out at night, can get on your roof and cause very extensive damage. And you do not want to have this happen, because many times by the time I'm called and it's already happened,
Yeah.
it's an extremely expensive ordeal. So what you're after there is a lot of insurance companies are asking homeowners to roof clearance or raise the vegetation above the roof so that damage is preemptive. They don't have that claim. There are some areas up in the Auburn and the higher areas where they're so backlogged on this type of service that even though they're trying and they're searching and they're calling for companies, they're so overloaded
Yeah.
that in some extreme cases they're literally denied their insurance if they don't get it done in a certain amount of time. So these are all things that it's dark and you don't go out and look at the tree. These are all things that are easy to forget, but you really don't want to have them happen, because most of them are very expensive to solve. The problems are expensive to solve.
Okay.
So don't hesitate to call. We're local. We can usually get just about anywhere we need to be here in Lincoln in 12 to 15 minutes. Obviously, we're scheduled. we do schedule days in advance.
Yeah.
When you are calling, if you call, you can always leave a message. We do check them regularly. But I would very much encourage people who have not got workman's comp and or is not properly licensed. A city license is different than a state license. You can have insurance, you can have a city license and do jobs, but then not be a state licensed contractor. So do your due diligence, check and make sure that you actually have somebody properly licensed for your industry. Yeah.
So Dave, I am just so impressed by you. I thank you so much for your time today. If I thought you were incredible before, you just took it up several notches.
Thank you.
I'm just, blown away.
Cool.
So, I'm always going to call Dave if I have 3 questions, and I suggest you guys do too. And you can see his information here. I've posted also in the headline on this video. And did you have any final thoughts or anything else you wanted to say?
We love trees. We don't just cut them, we plant them.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and join us next week. We will be live with Dr. Grover Lee. I was a little premature announcing that interview last week. I got my schedule a little mixed up, but next week we'll be out at Wise Villas, so I hope you guys can all join me Tuesday morning at 11:30 for Lincoln Live. Thank you.